Hi, and welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast of Complete and Box Video Games. This is episode 15, where we're all about Fallout. We also have guest Chris Klumpp. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing fine. It's great to be back in the illustrious CIB recording studio, high atop the CIB tower here in Ephrata, Pennsylvania.
Same CIB time, same CIB channel.
That's right. That's right.
So, and the joke is that we do these episodes back to back. So it's been like 5 minutes.
It's been 5 minutes.
Listen,
I've got up and got a drink of water.
I want to say something real quick. First of all, www.chrisklumpp.com. That's
right.
CHRISKLUMPP.com.
That's right.
He writes. He's a writer. He writes things. He writes words.
That's right.
Check it out. I'm
go.
also going to remember, definitely remember to put a link at the bottom.
That's the only reason why I'm here. I'm like, ooh, can plug the website.
Oh, baby, all 25 views.
That's right. All right.
Views. All right. So this is an episode all about Fallout, and I must mention that unlike most episodes of this podcast, I'm a very knowledgeable person. I know a lot about things and stuff, and I mean, if people meet me, they're like, "Wow, he has a lot to say about this." Is that how you say it nicely?
Pretty much. Like, well, he's informed.
He has a lot to say, doesn't he? He's got a lot of energy. Anyway, so I must first mention that I am definitely a newbie when it comes to Fallout. So this is definitely one of those series that I do not know much about. I've only ever played Fallout 3 in New Vegas for about an hour each. I tried them. The openness of the games like that are sometimes a turnoff to me. I'm more of the imagine God of War. You walk from point A to point B, you have fun there. Sometimes it can be very difficult for me for games like that. Although I do understand why people do like them a lot. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I want to talk about with you, Chris, is Bethesda. Do you just answer my question? Do you think they are a good developer?
Nope. They are not. And again, just my opinion, so internet don't need to hunt me down for this, but I am not a fan of Bethesda. The first Bethesda game I ever played was Elder Scrolls Oblivion? Yeah.
The
Oblivion.
360 one, right.
Sure, PC Master Race. I didn't play it I didn't have a 360.
CIB does not endorse PC Master Race. Buy consoles.
No, I agree. But no, I played that, and I was like, wow, this game's buggy as all get out. And then I was like, I hope they fix that later.
Yep.
Nope. That's Bethesda. Is it 3/4 of the way done? No, it's about halfway done. Put it out, though. We'll fix it in DLC later.
So my next part of the question was, people always complain about games being glitchy or even game-breakingly glitchy. Is this a legitimate complaint? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And Fallout has been game-breakingly glitchy long before Bethesda took over. So it's almost like they're keeping up the tradition of just bad developed games.
Now let's talk like I know nothing about Fallout. I know that would be a surprise. You said when they took over. When did they take over?
They took over when Fallout 3 came out.
So Fallout 1 and
2, Tactics, and Brotherhood of Steel were all made by, I want to say, Interplay?
Interplay?
Interplay. I almost said Interscope.
Interplay is an actual thing.
Interplay and I want to say Black Isles, and then later Obsidian took over.
So, with Bethesda, now again, I should know this, but I don't, and I just want to make sure. They have multiple studios that work on these Fallout games, or do they just have one? Because I kind of remember Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas being made by different teams.
Right. Bethesda didn't... They produced Fallout New Vegas. They didn't develop. Obsidian developed. And that's why... And Obsidian is what was left of Interplay. Because Interplay went out of business because they were really bad at managing things.
A lot of 90s. A lot of 90s.
a lot of 90s games. They had a lot of amazing titles. They had a lot of really bad titles. They had more bad than they had good, and they just went out of business. And again, I could be a little mistaken about this, but if I'm not mistaken, Obsidian was kind of the remnants of Interplay, and they developed the game. Bethesda produced the game. So Obsidian actually made it. Bethesda just put the money behind it and put it out.
So Fallout 3 was all Bethesda.
That's all Bethesda.
Now, this is probably way far down on the list of questions, but I'm going to guess you like New Vegas better than 3. Then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because, but the main reason is you have the OG people from Interplay
Yep.
making it.
Exactly.
Whereas 3 is just literally
3
Bethesda.
is and 3 is the kind of the stepchild of the series because it is remarkably different from 1 and 2 and New Vegas. And I don't even want to get into tactics and Brotherhood of Steel.
I do eventually want to get into that question, why 3 and New Vegas are different, because to me as a layman they just look exactly the same. But let's start first with the original ones, because this series, just like in our last episode 14, Crazy About Castlevania, has changed quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have been playing these games since literally before they were cool.
Oh, yeah.
Because before Fallout 3, the series was like not cool. Like,
it was not. It was not in the lexicon. Nobody was talking about Fallout.
Let me put it this way: there weren't little mystery box pops made out of Fallout characters back
Nope.
then.
No, there weren't. If you met another Fallout fan, it was just like really? Oh, right, let's talk. And then other people would just be like, "What the hell is Fallout?"
So when they were not so popular in different games, what drew you into them?
Actually, it was kind of interesting. So back in the day, I was 16 years old. There was nowhere to go because you're too young to like go to places that serve alcohol. And around here, there's nothing. So when we would hang out, me and my buddies, it would either be like the mall or just wherever. And this particular day, we were hanging out at a Walmart because nothing else to do.
Folks, we live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
You
gotta cut us a break.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, everybody does this between the ages of 16 and 21. You hang out. Even
I did it. I don't even like hanging out or whatever. Even I did it.
We were walking through the video game section of Walmart, and my buddy Justin, I'm the oldest child in the family, so I didn't have the big brother who bought games and said like, "Here, this game's cool. This game is not. Don't worry about this." My buddy Justin has a significantly older brother who did all that for him. So when his brother played Fallout, told him to play Fallout, and then we show up at Walmart and they had a jewel case of Fallout 1 and 2 for $10. And Justin grabbed it, handed it to me, and he goes, "Go home. Install this and play it." And I'm like, "Where are we going to do stuff?" He's like, "Not anymore, buddy. You're playing Fallout." So I went home, installed it on MS-DOS, baby, Windows 95.
Baby.
And I started playing it, and I instantly got sucked into it. And it was the first time in my life that I lost track of time gaming to the point where I looked up and it was 2:00 in the morning, and I knew that because my father was standing over me going, "What are you still doing up? You have to go to school tomorrow. Go to bed." So yeah, I got sucked in pretty early in the series.
So was it the first game of its type that you played, or what really? There had to be something specific that drew you in.
It was the first RPG that didn't have anything to do with magic that I played.
Okay.
I don't like magic.
Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I played D&D, but only because I didn't have any other options as far as RPGs. But back in the day, if you were playing a video game RPG, your options were pretty limited.
They were literally like the Final Fantasy was like the grandfather of it.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Right.
So it was magic missiles and staves and wands. Fallout was the first time that I remember thinking like, "Oh, it's an RPG, but I get a rocket launcher. I get a shotgun. I don't have to worry about spells. I just have to worry about loading my Desert Eagle." Like that's what drew me in. And I'm a sucker for post-apocalyptic anything. Like I as a young kid, I was obsessed with movies like the Mad Max series, and Dawn of the Dead. All like everything's gone to crap and we have nothing left. I love those types of things. So when I started playing Fallout, I was like, this is like the Road Warrior, but I'm playing a game of it. This is incredible, and I absolutely loved it.
And did the older Fallouts, because I have legitimately never touched the ones before 3, did they have like a sense of humor to them?
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's really interesting that they take something like that. I mean, Mad Max has a sense of humor, correct? The older ones,
a little bit.
Okay,
yeah, there's some tongue in cheek.
Okay, so like it takes something that's like bad, the world being over, and then like add like humor to it, which is really interesting because you can take that one of two ways. You can make the movie The Road, right? The Road, yeah,
Oh.
right. And you're like,
the most depressing movie
God.
ever made.
Which, by the way, I'm the guy who hasn't seen movies. I've seen that one, and I wish I haven't.
Yep.
So,
I can't imagine because I don't have a kid. I can't imagine.
Dude, it was so,
I actually watched.
Ferris was literally like 6 months old at that time, so I was like that first year he was around, bumming around the house.
Showed up. We let him shack up upstairs.
That first year he was here, literally every movie that me and Ash watched was like, we were like, that's how they get you, because every movie was like I'm proud of you, son, and we were like, dude, like I couldn't even watch King of the Hill and be like, I view this differently.
No. I watched a small tangent. I watched The Road with a buddy of mine. Like we had two movies to watch to choose from: The Road or The A-Team. I wanted to go to The A-Team. He went The Road, and he was an expecting father. Like his wife had just gotten pregnant, and he's watching. And we're just biting our knuckles, and he's going, "Whoa, Klumpp, what would you do? What would you do?" I'm like, I would watch The A-Team. That's what I would have done. I would want to watch this.
Press eject.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is interesting that it could take that. Now let's talk the old series, because let's be honest, they are way less popular than 3 in New Vegas and 4 and all that.
And there's a good reason for that.
So there's a lot of people who, including myself, don't know much about it. Now, Fallout 1 and 2, from me just watching videos once in a while, were very much like a Diablo-like setup, in that you're kind of looking from that like...
Yeah, you're doing that.
I don't know what that angle is called.
It's like three-quarter down, third-person view.
And clearly, the graphical limitations at the time wouldn't allow for a first-person adventure.
No,
like
not
that.
even close.
So, do you, in general, prefer that old-school style, three-quarters, whatever thing, or the new-school style?
Oh boy, yeah, the three-quarter style third-person has its charm. It's like an old book that you've read 1,000 times. And it may not be the best book, but you love it because you've sunk so much time and energy into it. But I gotta say, as far as playability is concerned, like New Vegas and even 3, even though I hate 3, it's a lot easier to play and it's a lot more fun to play.
So this isn't a case of old man Klumpp yells at video games.
Not in this particular
okay.
thing.
So what is it about the old ones? Is it just like the I imagine like the inventory management would be crazy. Or
the inventory management. Okay, so one of the things, I'm just going to jump right into this.
Let's
do
it.
So Fallout 3, when I started playing Fallout 3, I was so excited. I was just so excited. I went, I installed it. Yes, I installed it. Sorry, I didn't have an Xbox. So I installed it, and I literally got goosebumps when the title card comes up and you see the power armor and it says Fallout 3 and that music I got goosebumps. I was so excited. And then I started playing it and I sunk a lot of time into it, but it just wasn't the same game. The old school Fallouts, Fallout 1 and 2, had so much more gravitas to it as far as what you were trying to do in the game storyline wise, and also it just felt more real. In Fallout 1, like, everything has weight. So you have to manage everything. Like, your
Lord in
armor
heaven, dude.
has weight. Your gun has weight. Your ammo has weight. So if you have too many rounds of a gun, like, you can't walk.
I mean, that's old school Baldur's Gate stuff, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Made by the same company, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Interplay. Yeah. Yep.
And the open world feel of it is a lot different. Because in Fallout 1, you had a quick travel, but you could still get stopped in that quick travel. It brought up a big map when you left the city or the village. It would bring up a map, and you'd see your little cursor walk across the map. But at any time, you could get stopped with a random encounter. And that random encounter could be anything from a random ghoul to some super mutants to some death claws. Like, it didn't matter. Like, you could just run into stuff.
Was it like RPG like, or was it?
Oh, absolutely, because it was turn based.
Oh.
It was not similar to Diablo in the sense where, if I remember correctly, I didn't play much Diablo, but Diablo was Diablo turn based?
No, it was just
real time. Yeah,
real time. Yeah.
Yeah, this was turn based, and it had this thing where you would get so many points in your turn. It wasn't like you just chose one action. You had so many action points. Actions cost so many points, so you could literally set up like, all right, I want to shoot him, then I want to leave, or I want to shoot him and then shoot that guy over there, or I just want to book it, and it would take so many action points. So you had to really you had to manage your inventory, your action points, your stats. Like, it was very
Involved.
very involved, and there was a lot of depth to it. For a game that had some pretty terrible graphics, relatively speaking, compared to today, where you're looking at it going like, is that a guy? Is that a girl? Who is that? Like, you have the same animations over and over again. There's almost no FMV sequences. It still was shockingly in depth, to the point where in the first Fallout, when raiders killed my dog, I literally stood up, shouted at the computer a number of obscenities, rage quit, stormed. I was pissed because, like, you killed my dog, and I was like, my mom was like, well, it's just a video game. I'm like, you don't understand. It's not just a game.
I mean, that goes to show you that it's not. Yes, everything nowadays is about graphics, but sometimes, like, stuff like that can hit you. You know,
good story
will literally
good immersion.
It will always win over like a very like pretty whatever game that doesn't have much substance to it. So I think you've alluded to what I can imagine your favorite Fallout game is, which is New Vegas.
New Vegas is the one I've spent the most time playing. I'm embarrassed as to how many, because Steam keeps tracking your
yes,
hours.
It does, doesn't it?
And oh boy, I really hope my wife doesn't look on that on that screen, because she's gonna get ticked. I have spent. All right, I'm just gonna throw it out there. I have spent, no lie, over 800 hours playing Fallout New Vegas.
Is there that much to do in it? Like, you're not just at the point where you're like,
oh no,
that's
multiple games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
But there's quite a bit in there, but there's multiple games of it.
Right.
And when I talk about how I build my characters, you'll see why I spent so much time playing it. But yeah, New Vegas was the perfect marriage between what I loved about Fallout 1 and 2 and what I like about modern gaming, like the ease of it and the 3D graphics and the open world of it. But it also had, like, you had to turn on hardcore mode and wasteland wackiness to do it. Those were two options, which they tried to tell you, like, hey, don't do this, but you can. I totally did it. And it made it a better game, and it made it more like the old school Fallouts.
So, let's get into this. We mentioned it earlier. To a layman like me, 3 in New Vegas look very similar. They look very similar. Yep. They act very similar. Like the HUDs and all that stuff is very similar. I think New Vegas has more of like a Western kind of feel.
Oh, absolutely.
To it, like
because it takes place in a completely different zone.
Right, but it's completely different to the Fallout kind of people, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so
you could always tell. Like I always talked with like the hardcore Fallout buddies of mine, and you could always tell who got into Fallout with Fallout 3 and who got into Fallout with 1, depending on which they liked more, 3 or New Vegas. If you liked 3, that was the first game you played. If you liked New Vegas, you played Fallout 1.
Now, is New Vegas like more like involved, more deep, like more to it?
Yeah, definitely. There's way more role-playing qualities to it. One of the big things with Fallout 2, because in Fallout 1 it was basically a solo game. You could get a few companions here and there, but not many, and they weren't really necessary. In Fallout 2, you could get, depending on your charisma level, you could get a lot of companions, and there were a lot to choose from. And depending on how you did it, there were some that from the get-go you couldn't get if you didn't build your character right. So in Fallout New Vegas, there were a lot more companions to choose from. They had their own storylines, just like in Fallout 2. When you got a companion, you kind of could, you didn't have to, but you could play through their storyline quests. Whereas with 3, I mean, I don't even remember. You could get companions, but I remember them being kind of worthless. And not really involved.
So I want to go into the 3 in New Vegas thing just a little bit more, but the second part of the original question was, most favorite and least favorite. Is there a black sheep of the Fallout family?
Ooh, yeah, that would be Fallout Tactics.
And that was obviously PC one.
No, that was for, I believe that was for the original Xbox.
No, actually, you know what? You're right. There was a Fallout. You're right for the
Fallout Tactics and Brotherhood of Steel. Both came out on the Xbox.
I know for an absolute fact, and I'm not gonna look it up because typing on this keyboard would be very loud for you folks out there. But Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, absolutely 100%. I know for a fact is on the Xbox. First of all, is that game good?
It's okay. It's a Baldur's Gate ripoff.
Okay.
It's
stuff like that. I mean, I will literally always be a sucker for
Yeah,
Baldur's Gate
yeah.
ripoffs. I can't help it.
yeah.
So
If you like Baldur's Gate, you would enjoy
like
Brotherhood
kind
of
of thing.
Steel.
I can't say for a fact, and we'll look it up later, that I think I don't ever remember personally, and it's not like I'm ever around games or anything like that.
Tactics might have
Get
been
it?
PC only.
Yeah, I think it's PC only because I don't remember ever seeing
I
a physical
barely
copy
played
of it.
those games
So,
because they weren't
what's
good.
up with Tactics came out after 2?
Two.
Okay.
After 2.
So it was 1, 2.
And then Tactics.
Okay.
And then Brotherhood, and then nothing for years. I don't like tactical games. Like
So
I never
it's
got
like,
into
it's
like
like
Advanced
it's
Wars.
like
or
a
anything
it's
like
like
that.
a Final Fantasy Tactics kind of game.
Pretty much,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
exactly like that. Except the mechanics of it were awful. I watched somebody play it, and I'm like, man, this doesn't look fun. And he was like, it's not.
It's not. I'm just doing it. I'm going through the motions.
Yep. So that would probably be my least favorite. Although 3 really grinds my gears, but it is still a better game than Tactics.
So let's go into that. And if you look at that, I mean, the way you're explaining it, Tactics is almost like if you wanted to, you could consider it not even part of the series because you're like, it's so different. It doesn't even count.
And
like if you're like, what's the
same
best?
with Brotherhood of Steel. You don't need to play any of those games to keep the storyline going. And that's kind of one of my beefs with 3 is 3 kind of talks about the stuff that happens in 1 and 2 a little bit, but there's so much that they tacked on or changed that I was like, why would you do this?
Well, so now I have to ask because again, I'm very non-knowledgeable about this. Elder Scrolls, which also I don't like. I'm sorry.
There's a lot not to like.
I understand the appeal. I get it. Big open games, you can do a lot of stuff. I find them boring. But the one thing that I can respect, because we're talking about stories, is Elder Scrolls is like a big overarching story. I don't know what the main map is called, but like Skyrim is a place, and Morrowind is a place, and Oblivion is a place,
sort of a place,
kind of a place, right? It's like the inner or whatever. But
Yeah.
but it's like technically, if you looked at a map, you could be like, that's where Skyrim took place, and that's where Morrowind took place, and whatever. Does Fallout have that kind of thing going on?
Oh, absolutely. The first 2 Fallouts take place in Eastern California, Western Nevada. And then Fallout 3 takes place in the DC region, and then New Vegas takes place, obviously, in the Vegas region. So there are a lot of, like, Fallout 1 and 2 directly affect each other. Like, the storyline is very much, like, very linear, very overarching. Fallout 3, there's very little overarch from 1 and 2.
But it's assuming it takes place in the same universe.
Absolutely.
Right.
It absolutely takes place in the universe.
Around the same time?
It takes place... now, this is where hardcore fans are going to get mad at me because I don't have the timeline memorized. If I remember correctly, it takes place like...
this guy over here.
Yeah, I think it takes place 75 years after Fallout 2. So Fallout 1, so the basic storyline of Fallout 1 is you're a guy in a vault, and you leave the vault to try to save it because they're running out of water. And then you end up running into super mutants and you save the vault. And then, spoiler alert, kids, at the end of Fallout 1, your vault doesn't want you back because you've changed too much. You've become too much like the world. So they,
That's actually pretty cool. I don't know anything about it, but that's a cool story.
Like, your reward for saving them is them just excommunicating you from the vault. So then, in Fallout 2, they explain that the Vault Dweller, because you pick your own name and gender. So it just says the Vault Dweller left, became reclusive, and started his own or her own colony. And then in that one, it's kind of similar. The colony is dying, and they need you to go get this lost piece of tech called the GEC, the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, and that's what you have to go find in that one. So it's very much an overarching story, and you don't meet anyone from each game, but you do hear about stuff. Like at one point in the first game, you can join the Brotherhood of Steel. In fact, you kind of have to. Well, you don't have to, but if you don't, you're going to be really bad at it. And in the second one, you see a Brotherhood of Steel bunker, and they recognize you as a descendant of a Vault Dweller. And they know who you are, and they're like, oh, we're watching you. Just letting you know we're watching you. In Fallout 3, they don't mention any of that stuff. It's just like, oh yeah, the Brotherhood picked up and moved out to DC and started getting all weird.
If we're thinking timeline here, Fallout 1's the first. It's just pretty much a straight timeline.
Yep.
It's not crazy prequels or whatever.
No.
How long after the Fallout, the apocalypse,
the
does this
bomb.
take place?
If I remember, like, no one really knows. In like,
so it's,
in the
this
lore,
is one of those things where
game, nobody really knows.
So this is one of those things where it's like, we've been in these vaults for generations, kind of thing. We have forgotten it's been so long, kind of thing.
Pretty much. And different vaults have different purposes that they don't know about. That's the other thing that I love about Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas. There are no good guys in Fallout 1 and 2. Like, the Brotherhood of Steel isn't a good guy. In 3, they're clearly the good guys. In New Vegas and 1 and 2, everybody's after their own agenda. No one's out for humanity.
Well, and it seems like, I hate to be the realist here, but it seems like that's realistic.
That's realistic,
like,
right.
the literal second, I mean, and we don't see it as big, but the literal second something happens to humanity, it's like, something happens, loot, get our stuff, you know what I mean? Like,
get whatever we need
it's
to.
Like, I mean, we've seen it a lot. Let's not go into politics, but we see it a lot. So it's like, and
on a worldwide stage, that's clearly what would happen.
Right.
And so, like, in Fallout 1 and 2, the Brotherhood of Steel they're only out to maintain technology. That's all they care about. They could care less about humanity. Like, they will do whatever they have to just to collect and hoard technology. The Enclave does not care whatsoever about the average person. They only care about political power and to fight the Brotherhood of Steel. You know, the super mutants do not care about humanity. They want to enslave humanity. The ghouls don't care about humanity. Everybody's after their own thing. In Fallout 3, there is a clear good guy. The Brotherhood is helping them. The Enclave is clearly the bad guy. And it just didn't make sense it just didn't fit right. The puzzle piece didn't fit right in the grand mosaic of the Fallout series. Whereas in New Vegas, they brought that back. Where, like, you could choose a ton of different sides in New Vegas. And none of them were good or bad. They just were like a duality of the two.
It wasn't like, oh god, like you hate when you see it in movies where like the bad guy has the top hat and the twirly mustache and he's like, I am evil, you know, and it's like,
actually in New Vegas
it's so easy to make characters like that where it's like, I'm Superman, well, I'm Lex Luthor.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh god, come on, like, it's so obvious.
In New Vegas, you have these different sides, and when you go and talk to them, like the Legion in Fallout New Vegas is painted as this really terrible, awful group that just commits genocide, and they just don't, like, they'll just burn whole towns to the ground. And then you meet Kaiser, and you realize, oh, like, yeah, he's evil-ish, but he has a plan. And in his idea, the ideal world, order will be held with an iron fist. And then, like, the different factions you can join up also kind of have the same feeling.
Well, and that makes sense because there's no communication there.
Right, yeah.
And it's like, it just is what it is. We see it a little in everyday life, but it's like, if there was no communication, it's like, all you would hear is the people in the... I guess imagine Game of Thrones, like, the people
Pretty
north
much,
of the wall or
yeah.
whatever. Oh my god, they're so crazy. And you meet them and you're like, well, they're a little nuts, but they're not, like,
so you have,
eating me.
You have the Legion who hates the NCR, and the NCR hates the Brotherhood of Steel, and the Brotherhood of Steel hates everybody. And it's just... It feels more real. But at the same time, there are these instances that take you out of the game that are funny. So in the original Fallout, you would get these random encounters, and you would, like, they would basically just pay homage to the stuff that they were fans of. Like in Fallout 2, you can run into the TARDIS from Doctor Who. Like, I didn't know what it was at the time because I wasn't into Doctor Who at the time, but I was like, oh, there's the TARDIS. You run into the whale and the potted plant from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like, you just see a whale in the middle of the desert with a potted plant next to it, and you're like, that's weird, and you just keep going.
Then when you're older, you're like, ah.
Yeah. And in New Vegas, they have the same things where you could run into stuff where you're like, what? There's a scene in New Vegas where there's all these robo-dogs. Then you turn around and they're all playing poker, sitting at a table, and they're all just playing poker. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like that famous painting. Stuff like that. So it was serious. Like, the storyline was very serious and dealt with very hard-hitting issues. but it also had this tongue-in-cheek humor that was really well
And
done.
it's tough because if you do it too much, then it's like,
It becomes campy.
this game's too silly. Yeah, it can't be great.
Or it becomes too serious. It really balances it well. Whereas Fallout 3, it was very serious. And it didn't really have... There were a few moments that made you laugh if you went and killed Three Dog. He was the radio station host. If you killed him, then his intern had to take over, and that was kind of funny. But it got old quick. But my basic gripe with 3 was there were too many plot holes that didn't make sense. If you beat 3, at the very end of 3, you're asked to give up your life to save the world, basically. And you have to go into a room that's filled with radiation. Well, I had a ghoul who can withstand radiation in my team, and I had a super mutant who can withstand radiation.
Why not send them?
And I'm like, why can't I just send them? This doesn't make sense. So that bugged me. Stuff like that. It was just little things like that just like stim packs instantly healed you. And I'm like, man, they didn't back in the day. So back in the day, you had to work to heal. If you got a broken leg, you were screwed.
You've actually gone in pretty great detail to this next question, but I do want to explain some things I've heard to the audience. From having years of the store, I've heard, and there's some people that will like both, because there's always that case.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, there's either you're a Fallout 3 person, you're a Fallout New Vegas person.
Yep.
And again, I'm simplifying things greatly, but it's either you love 3 and think New Vegas is garbage. Or you love New Vegas and you think 3 is garbage. Now I'm understanding it. I'm getting it more, where it's like, essentially, if you started with 3, you're probably going to be like, that's my OG, that's my thing.
Yep.
New Vegas messed with it. And if you play with the older ones, you're like, 3 was okay. It was a good 3D part, getting ready for it. But New Vegas was what I was waiting for.
Exactly.
So that's... I did not expect that question to be answered like that, but that makes total sense. Especially, like, the second you said that, the people who made the original ones made New Vegas, it was like, well, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. It's like being like, I don't know, if Simpsons writers for season 2 through 5 came back and made this season, it would be like, why do you hate seasons 12 through 25 but love 26? Listen,
you just wouldn't get it.
It just is what it is, and it's totally understandable. There is just always something about the original people who come up with something that, I'm not saying that they always do it better, because sometimes technically it might not be better, but it always has that like certain feel, like those little jokes and the stuff like that. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, let's we're kind of, I don't want to say running low on time here, but I want to get into some other stuff. So, do you have let's go into just finishing up 3 in New Vegas here, because that's its own thing. Do you have a particular like favorite moment or least favorite moment, or what I'm very interested to hear is like a favorite glitch that had happened to you, where you're like, I had this 300-hour thing and now it's done?
I didn't have a glitch like that, because I learned my lesson with Oblivion, where I did spend several hundred hours doing stuff, and then it glitched out and I lost my game. So luckily I learned from that, and with Fallout 3 and New Vegas, I did something I call cascade saves, where it's like I have 7 or 8 or sometimes 10 save files of the same game, and I just go over and over again. So if one gets corrupted, well, I'm only 2 hours behind in this save. Thank God. So yeah, Fallout 3 and 4, quick saves your best friend. But I'm trying to think, like, favorite moments of the game. There's a moment in Fallout New Vegas where if you pick the Wasteland Wackiness, which is when you do this like weird stuff, I walked outside of a town and was attacked by a gang of machine gun wielding grandmas. And that was great, because that's something that like Fallout 2 would have done so very well. So I'm just like, I walk outside and all of a sudden my view, because it forces your view, and it's just like this old granny with a machine gun. She's like, get her, girls! And like all of a sudden I'm like, oh snap! There's just all of these grannies. And I'm like trying to shoot them, and like Ed is like the robot is like sailing in and he dies. I'm like, no! And I just got trounced by these grandmothers. It was great.
Can you think of any like particular? It doesn't even have to be funny, but just crazy glitch where you're like, "Hey, look at this! This is," because I mean, clearly they're kind of
No, I kind of burned them from my memory. Yeah. It would frustrate me so much that I'm like none of them were fun. None of them were like, oh, this is great.
I actually have one particular one, which I didn't do the cascading save thing because whatever. I was playing on the PS3 and Fallout 3. It's like maybe like an hour in when you're still in the vault and you're about to get out, and there's a part where you're in a classroom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And you have to get up out of your chair and you have to go talk to someone or whatever. And I played it and I got to there, and again, it's 2016. I have no patience. It like would not let me get out of the chair.
Yep, that happened to me too.
Okay, and then like I was like, I literally saved like the cutscene before this. So like you start it up and it's like blah 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 blah. Get out of my chair. Nope. And it was like, guess better start over. And it was weird. I was like, why can't I get out of this chair? Like I did it before. You know what I mean? It just would not let me get out of the dumb chair.
The coolest glitch I ever saw, I didn't do it myself, but I did see on Fallout 3, is you can play the whole game, because you start out in Fallout 3 as a baby. And you grow up. You can actually, there's a glitch, I forget how you do it, but you can play the whole game as a baby. If you pull the cursor back, it's just a short version of you, but you still run around like with a machine gun, and you're only knee high, and you make all those baby cooing noises as you're just mowing people down.
That's pretty cool. So, let's quickly go, before we go into one of the meat of my questions that I'm a little confused about later.
Okay.
Fallout 4. Came out last year?
Yep.
Brief thoughts.
Haven't played it yet.
Really?
And I'll tell you why.
Really?
Here's why.
Wow,
Here's
I'm
why.
so surprised to hear that.
Do you remember one of our few early interactions when Fallout New Vegas came out? I called, you were still working at, I believe, GameStop when Fallout New Vegas came out, I think.
And, yeah, that makes sense. It was like 2010 or so.
Yeah, I called you up and I'm like, hey, can you guys reserve me a copy of Fallout New Vegas Collector's Edition? You're like, nope, they're already all reserved. I'm like, all right, nuts, I'll just go through Amazon. I'm really sorry. And you're like, yep, I understand completely. DLC is a pain. Because you got different DLC depending on where you reserved it. I spent so much money on Fallout New Vegas because I bought the Collector's Edition. Then I bought each episode of DLC. I bought every single weapon pack. I must have spent close to $200 on this game easily. That when Fallout 4 came out, I'm like, I'm waiting for the Game of the Year edition. I'm waiting for the fixed edition. So I haven't even touched it yet.
So yeah, I mean, when the Game of the Year always comes out.
Yeah,
like
and
it's
so I'm waiting for the complete.
Well,
like,
I can tell you,
done.
Judging on what I know about video games, what happens first is the game gets cheap, and it is now.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a new $60 version out there.
Yep.
Because the game's cheap, and now there's a $60 version out there. So
I figure I'm going to wait for that version to become cheap. So I probably won't play it for another 2 years.
Are you excited?
No.
Is this another Bethesda-made one?
Yep.
Oh.
So I'm like, and they said like, well, we're bringing it back to Fallout 3, kids. I'm like, well, I hated Fallout 3, so I'm not that excited.
You don't think that there's ever going to be another like New Vegas type one, especially since is Obsidian still a thing?
I don't even think they're a company anymore. I don't think they're a company anymore because they botched KOTOR 2. A lot of people blame them for KOTOR 2.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. Wasn't their fault. And then people claimed they botched New Vegas. I'm like, New Vegas is a great game. You just didn't get it. I could be that guy.
I mean, like, legitimately, they can look at sales numbers, and like the hardcore people like you are just a small percentage.
Exactly. No. So if you're going off of pure numbers, yeah, Fallout 4 was a failure compared to 3, but it's a work of art.
So,
in my opinion.
So speaking of not works of art, aka Bethesda, I'm joking. I'm here all week. So although it isn't exactly the same as Fallout, Elder Scrolls is a pretty similar series.
Very similar.
I like when I look when someone's like, "What's Elder Scrolls compared to Fallout?" I'm like, medieval Fallout.
Yep,
or you could say,
"What's
Fallout?" Post-apocalyptic
Elder Scrolls.
Right. So it's like very, very similar. Same publisher, all that stuff. Clearly, you would be on the side of Fallout. But why do you think, in general, and correct me if I am wrong, the Elder Scrolls series is a bit more popular than Fallout? Ooh. Now, that being said, Fallout 4 came out, it was very popular. Mm-hmm. Very popular. But it was nothing like when Skyrim came out, it was like, we were ordering hundreds of copies. Yeah. Right, and it's like, whatever. So, do you feel I'm correct on that? And
absolutely.
Why would that be?
Absolutely. Okay. And I feel like because Elder Scrolls has a deeper history, like there's much more, like more people have played the Elder Scrolls series than Fallout. Fallout 1 and 2 did win Game of the Year, respectively, for each year they came out, but very few people played it. It was very well received as far as critics were concerned, but as far as pure fans, I mean, Fallout 1 and 2 are broken games. You needed to patch them.
So is Elder Scrolls 1 and 2.
Yeah. Plus, when Fallout, when Fallout reached its high watermark of the old school series, it was on PC, and many more people played console. Because to build a gaming rig back in the day was insane. Whereas by the time Elder Scrolls like Oblivion came out,
a lot of people consider, and these are probably the same Elder Scrolls people as you are to Fallout, consider Morrowind to be the high watermark of Elder Scrolls. And at that point, something I just thought about, and although it is just the original Xbox, it did come out on console, whereas like Fallout 2 was never like, here's your console port.
Yeah, like I'm trying to remember. No, I don't think they ever did a single console port. They couldn't. I don't think they could do it.
No.
The PlayStation 1 didn't have the processing power back then. So I think that's why. And I also think because there wasn't this long gap between games where there was this really long gap. Like when they announced Fallout 3, I was like, are they insane? Like, it's been so long. People aren't going to get it. And I've talked to people at CIB and other places where they were like, what do they call Fallout 3? When did Fallout 1 and 2 come out? I'm like, they came out in like 96 and 97. Like, those are, and for a lot of gamers, that's ancient.
Right. Right.
And Fallout 1 and 2 has had kind of a renaissance with the popularity
of course. I mean, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's why Elder Scrolls, in my opinion, Elder Scrolls is a more popular game. They came out more readily, and they were easier to get your hands on. You could play them on consoles farther back than you could Fallout. And as much as I love my PC, let's be honest, everybody has a console. Like, not everybody has a gaming rig.
It's tough to have a gaming rig.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. You have to put the time and money into it, whereas I could just roll up and for $275, I think, I can get a PS4.
They're actually cheaper than that.
Oh,
now.
are they
They're
now?
like $250 nowadays.
I might have to get one.
Yeah.
Still rocking that PS3, baby.
It's what we do here. We just give deals that are so good. Yeah, and actually, I would probably put myself, now again, I'm not struggling on the other side, but if they were like, pick Fallout or Elder Scrolls, you have to pick one, I'd probably pick Fallout, because like that more interests me. But it is so interesting. Like I said, this is unpopular opinion time. I think I played it a bit, and I've seen my cousin Ben, who you remember from LP fame, if you ever watch our LP things, play a lot. Mm-hmm. And every second I've seen anyone play of Skyrim, I'm like, wow, this game is boring.
Yeah,
like
it's just a lot of running.
The pastel color is like boring. It's like that like snowy, boring feel. Everything I've ever seen him do, and like I told him this the other week, and he was like, "Oh no," is inventory management. All I ever saw him do was run to his house and drop stuff, and then go get more stuff and drop in his house.
That's Fallout 3 in New Vegas right there.
And I was like, dude, this is boring. And he was like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
It's just like, you don't get it.
I've joked about Fallout New Vegas and 3 because in both those games you can get an apartment. And I joked that like half the game is just me going, all right, I'm going to put all my guns in this rack, put all my ammo in this rack, all my melee goes here. And in Fallout 1 and 2, you didn't get any of that.
So to get into our next and last major part, you have mentioned, and this is the part I'm most interested for, you have mentioned that you roleplay.
I roleplay hard.
In the game quite a bit. Please explain what you do.
Okay, so all these games are role-playing games, and if you don't know what a role-playing game is, it's you assume the role of a character. You're not playing, like in Castlevania, I'm playing as Simon Belmont, or I'm playing as Trevor Belmont, or whatever. In this, I am playing a character of my own creation. So I take it way too far, to a point where I take...
Here we go.
All right, I explained this to Parker. I don't know, has Parker been on the show?
Not yet, no.
Okay, well, you need to have him on. But me and Parker were driving to a concert, and we were talking about this, and I started explaining what I do, and Parker was like, he turned the music, and I was like, wait, what? You do what? So I take, when you play Fallout, you can create your character, and you can create it very, very specific.
Right.
To the point where I figured out, like, and I remember the first character I did this with, I was like, I'm going to make Bruce Lee. So I went down, and every single stat I made, and this was in Fallout 2, I'm like, I'm going to make everything I know about Bruce Lee into this game. So he's not going to use guns, he's not going to use any tech, he's just going to be handheld or melee weapon only. I'm going to give him incredible agility, great perception. And then I decided to take it a step further. So in the game, and I did this in New Vegas a lot, because you have to eat in New Vegas. If you play hardcore mode, you have
Sounds
to
super
eat.
fun.
So I decided, well,
I'm instantly turned off by that.
I know.
Oh my god.
Well, you don't have to eat if you don't turn on hardcore mode.
Oh, okay.
If you turn
All
on
right.
hardcore mode, you have to drink or you start to die. And for me, I was just like,
I have a hard enough time not dying in real life. Okay, that's like I can't. Don't die. I don't know, man.
but for a turbo RPG nerd like myself, I'm just like, oh baby, I gotta stop what I'm doing and make a meal in game. I don't have time to make a meal. I'm just gonna microwave a burrito in real life, but in this game, I'm gonna make a meal. So in the game, I was like, well, Bruce Lee was a vegetarian, so I was only a vegetarian,
my gosh.
and I wouldn't use stim packs because Bruce Lee never used any kind of illicit substance. I'm like, I'm never gonna use stim packs. So then I took it a step further, where I would make characters from other video games. I made Gordon Freeman. I made I would take characters from literature. I made a Sherlock Holmes. I made a Hercule Poirot for all you hardcore Agatha Christie fans out there. So I would make characters from movies, video games, literature, and I would play the game as that character.
And would you make decisions based on what they would do?
Based on what they would do. So when I played my Gordon Freeman character, I took charisma and just dropped it because Gordon Freeman doesn't talk, and so I would. Anytime that there was an option not to speak, I would take that option, whether it would be detrimental to me in the game or not. I would be like, well, that's what Gordon would do. Boom. And he was all science, couldn't pick a lock to save his life, but man, could he hack a computer. Or I would make, there's a very famous, not very famous, but a semi-famous real life thief from British history named Jack Shepherd, and I made a Jack Shepherd character where he's like, all right, he's incredibly agile, he's really strong, but he's small framed, and he doesn't kill people. So I tried to go through and try to kill as few people as possible, and that's how I could sink 800 hours
right,
into
absolutely.
a game.
I can totally see that.
Because every time I'd start a new character, I'd be like, all right, it wasn't, when you build those characters, do I build a character to beat the game? Because that's a generic character. I'm going to dump everything into small guns, or I guess in New Vegas it was just guns.
So do many of these characters end up just like you get to the point where you're like, I can't beat the game?
Oh yeah, no, my Bruce Lee character in Fallout 2, there was absolutely no chance. There was no chance. I remember showing the build to a few people who were like, I considered at the time experts, and they're like, you can't beat the game like this. Like, there's no way you can beat the game. Like, oh, I know.
Can't you level up in games like that? Or?
Oh yeah, but like if I'm not using guns, there's no way.
Right.
Because I can't use guns, and that means I have to use power armor. Bruce Lee wouldn't use armor, so I'm just gonna get tore up by pretty early on in the game.
Do you have any particular character you fondly remember? Like this was like a very unique experience while playing.
My Sherlock Holmes character in Fallout New Vegas.
Could he fight?
Oh yeah, in the book, Sherlock Holmes was an incredible hand to hand, like a I forget what it's called, pugilist. Like he was really good at fisticuffs, and really good with melee. He could use guns, but he wasn't really good at them, and so I gave him incredibly high perception, incredibly high agility, and he was really good at problem solving. But he absolutely sucked at shooting a gun, and I actually beat the game with him. I was shocked that I beat the game with him. So that was a great moment for me, just being able to do that.
What's the one that you can think of that just was DOA, like Dead on Arrival from like you was like
my Conan the Barbarian character, because I was
he
like
had no intelligence or whatever.
No, his intelligence it was Conan from the books, sir, not Conan from the movies.
Oh boy!
Oh yeah. So
that's how you were able to do it. That's fine.
He had a decent amount of intelligence, but and his charisma was pretty good. But Conan in the books only wore certain things to fit in or whatever. So like I would be like, all right, he's only gonna wear like Raider armor, which looked really cool. But the second I walked into a Deathclaw, I'd be like, well, I'm dead. Like here it is. I've just gotten wrecked. Like my shop has been wrecked.
And because you're so hardcore about that, you won't break the rules for that. You won't be like, well, maybe this time I can put this thing on. You're just like, nope, it's the end of the line for Conan.
Nope, he's dead. All right, what's the next character?
Do you know what would be interesting, and it would obviously take time and whatever, is for you to if there could be like a timeline of the events of say Fallout 2, and you just had the timeline, you're like beginning and end, and you're like, this is where this character would get hypothetically, that would be like actually, I'm pretty sure that would become like decently like quote unquote internet famous if it was like, hey Reddit, I made all these characters and this is how far they got. And like you have 10 major events of the game, however long the game is, and you're like, these characters would beat the game hypothetically. Because that's actually super interesting. Like, I have absolutely no interest in doing it, mind you.
Oh no, this is definitely for a specific type of gaming nerd that you have to really like commit to it. You have to accept that you probably won't win.
I got to admit, dude, when I play games, just because again I have no patience, I can't even. People always use the excuse, I don't have time, and it's like, dude,
well, that's you to a T.
you could make the time, but it's like I have no patience for it. So like when you're doing, all right, Mario RPG is a great example. You played the game before, so when you get a level, it's like attack, HP, or magic, and every time I start up the game, I'm like, they're real strong at magic, and I sit there and I sit there on the level up screen, and I'm like, attack. Every time it's like, hey, you leveled up 30 times. What'd you do? Attack 30 times.
Yep, it's attack.
You go up and be like, no. I'm gonna like really do magic this time. Attack.
And with Fallout, that like all you got to do then is I'm gonna dump every point into guns and energy, and like you're good to go. You're gonna be unstoppable. And you could beat Fallout 3 in probably or Fallout New Vegas. You could probably beat it in like 15 hours, which is a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
But you want to get into the meat of it, you get near 1,000 hours. That's when you realize you've made good choices.
What is it? Is that like, that's not one, like, what's the max of like one quest? Like you do everything.
Oh, you could probably. I think they boasted at like 80 hours gameplay. If you
so
did everything.
It's nothing super ridiculous.
Yeah. But I mean, to do everything is really hard.
So we talked. This almost goes into your role playing thing. So just pretend that you could do whatever you want. We're gonna design our perfect Fallout game here as the final thing we do today. So if the perfect Fallout game would be made, it would first take place where?
I would love to see a Fallout game take place in Northern California.
For what reason?
Mainly because the storyline in Eastern, like Southern California and Western Nevada is really interesting, and I would like to see what the surrounding regions happen with those events from Fallout 1 and 2.
Well, let me ask you this. Although they'll say, oh, this game takes place in Boston or DC or whatever, because it's just an apocalypse wasteland, is there like much that distinguishes it? It's not like you'd be like, oh, look at the forest,
Yeah, in Fallout 2, you could go to Reno. It was just called New Reno. And you did go to the Strip in Las Vegas. So I could see going Northern California where there's more like forests and it's less populated, just because I would love to see what like would happen up there. I could see something where like, the Brotherhood of Steel had a secret bunker up there and they really went off script and decided to like just start experimenting on people and stuff like that. Like I could see
because
stuff
literally
like
no one else is nearby.
Nobody's there to stop them. Yeah.
Has there been a Fallout game where you can reach like this? Interests me. The ocean. Like, and you can, like, do
in
they
Fallout
have like
2? The last fight takes place on an offshore oil rig.
Do they have like crazy stuff that is the ocean still there? I'm guessing it's not just evaporated with everything.
No,
else
it's
then?
not. It's not like Mad Max where it's all evaporated. No,
and are there like messed up and crazy like aquatic life?
Not really. Not in Fallout 2. In 3, there are a few. They're like these, and in New Vegas, there's like these little like man-sized crab things, and there's other things that look like if you ever saw the classic creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah,
there's like those kind of things,
okay.
But you don't go in the water. You can swim, but there's really.
Could you imagine that in the future, like a Fallout like with water stuff?
Oh, like a water world with Fallout. That'd be interesting.
I don't know.
That'd be interesting.
Cool. I mean, this game it's not based in like pure realism, right? Like it could be like 1,000 years later, and it's like we have developed the ability to be underwater because whatever radiation. I mean, literally, that's the great thing about it is you can say whatever radiation, and it's like it's actually true because if we were sitting here for this entire time next to radiation, we would be like, hey, nice second head you have, great, it's like, and that's like literal. All right, so it takes place in northern-ish California. Does it include any like new or previously existing feature that you like really want to see, or doesn't exist anymore?
I would love to see a new faction get introduced, because I'm kind of sick of, and they did this with New Vegas, like, because the Legion was not a thing in Fallout 1 and 2. At least I don't remember them being there. So I would love to see a new faction brought in, and I'd like to see some classic factions. I'd love to see like them to keep like the Children of the Apocalypse, and of course the Brotherhood, and I'd like to see the NCR come back. But the Enclave needs to stay away. They pretty much wrote them out of the West Coast, and I'm fine with that. But I would love to see a new faction rise up and kind of take it to a different level of gameplay. Basically, I'd like to see a game changer show up on the scene. You know what I mean? Like something like I don't know if you how many of your like listeners ever played like World of Warcraft, but when the one head dragon shows up, it's like the whole earth was like, all right, everybody, get off. Like, I'd like to see that level of a bad guy, or not even a bad guy, like a faction show up and just like, all right, everything's changed.
So from what I'm understanding,
all the rules are different.
They do a pretty good job of having like each faction has its own like positives and negatives, and like no one's ever like, we reign supreme.
Exactly.
But like you're saying, like just like this dude rolls into town and is like I'm the king now, and it's just like you know what? That would be really cool, because from what I'm understanding, once in a while, maybe if it suits their interests, these factions will like help each other out, but only to help their own interests. Mm-hmm. But to see one where it's like actually, and again, I don't know much about this, but two sides that just hate each other having to work for something. Yeah. I mean, it worked in Mario RPG where Bowser has to help Mario. You know what I mean? And everyone honestly loves to see that. Yeah. Where you're like, I don't want to work with you. The second this guy's dead, I'm killing you. Yep. You know, but we need you together.
I would absolutely love to see a baddie roll up where it's like, all right, now the NCR and the Brotherhood, despite the fact they hate each other, has to combine forces. And then there's a lot of, for a storyline wise, there's a lot of inner drama that would happen with that. Like, because they don't trust each other, but they have to work together, and what would that look like?
Man, that actually that makes me interested in that.
So it would make it a little more in depth with that, because then the game could keep going with, after you defeat this. I mean, the game might even be like a red herring of this bad guy. Like, that's half the game, and what you think is the climax is really just the middle point, and then the climax is, well, now this fragile alliance is falling apart, and which side do you choose, and how do you work, and which side's going to come on top?
Pay attention, Bethesda, because this is actually pretty good.
Yeah. So copyrighted Chris Klumpp, 2016.
There are two, and we're just finishing up here. There are two different ways, and when we're talking about the story, that you can do apocalypse type stories. There's the stuff like The Road, where literally all you can do is try to survive one more day, and there's like literally no hope. And
then there is no long term. Your long term plan is I need to make it another hour.
I need a meal, kind of thing. Yep. And then there's something like The Last of Us, which I don't know if you played the one, but the general hope is that there is a cure, and that I'm not going to give this away because it's a very good story. The stuff that you can do, there can be a cure, and there's like hope, even if it's very tough. Does Fallout just generally take the place of like there's hope, we can do this, we can somehow fix everything?
Sort of, except that nobody knows what they're trying to fix. It's all these different factions, like, again, working for themselves. So like the NCR believes that doing things old school, like before the bomb, that's what they want to do. The Brotherhood doesn't care about like people, they only care about technology, and they believe that's gonna save humanity, is, you know, saving technology. The Enclave believed that humanity can be saved through totalitarian power. So it's basically, it's like modern day politics. Everybody's drawing a line in the sand, but there may not be an exact opponent on the other side, and not everybody can agree on what needs to happen to fix it. Again, like real life politics.
Do they generally set it up where there's like they could find, if they found a way to work together, like, life would be better? Or do they set the world up like, nah, like, again, nuclear fallout, it is what it is, but if it's like, if we worked hard and whatever, we could get this better?
Not in a world sense. Only in, like, small groups. Like, when you would roll into a specific city or town in Fallout, they'd be like, well, we figured it out. And we do this. And then you roll into another city and you're like, oh, we figured it out. And we do this.
You know, and that's something that the Walking Dead comic does super well.
Yeah.
Because when you first start, it's literally just like, oh, we just have to survive.
Yep.
Everyone's dying, whatever. And now at the point where they are now, no real spoilers here, they're like, they have a big place where they're like, we have lots of people. They all have their own job. It's like literally society. It's like you just have our own job.
You have pockets of societies instead of one big society.
Exactly. So. Exactly. But
and each pocket does their own thing.
I guess it's different and it's so funny. Like, and again, this is real life too. But it's like, you do that thing slightly different. Off with ye head.
Yeah, exactly,
like,
exactly.
Well, we believe in this. What?
yeah. And that's kind of how it is in the first couple Fallouts, where it's like, oh, we do it this way, and that's great. And then you go to another city and you're like, wow, they do it completely differently, and I'm probably going to die.
You know, I got to say, this was actually very interesting, the talk, and I almost want to play Fallout at this point. Like, I'm never, ever going to touch 1 and 2. I'm sorry. To your listeners, if you do, go to No More Mutants, or is it No More Mutants or No Mutants Allowed? I think it's No Mutants Allowed. Download the fan patch, because Lord Almighty, you're going to need it. Because they put out a broken game, and you need to patch the hell out of it. But, like, talking about this, like, this is the kind of cool, the lore and the story and stuff like that, like, actually, like, interests me. And I guess my only thing about the games is I wish there was, like, the meat of the games was, like, easier to get into. Like,
oh yeah,
like,
it's definitely
if you would like
daunting.
if it would be like, gather around kids, I'll tell you the story of Fallout, I would like totally listen. Or if there was a way to be like, you can watch on YouTube only like the story stuff, I'd be like, well, I'll watch this, it sounds like a cool story. But it's like, I guess I'll just never get into like the real open world game.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking to a guy who hasn't played Grand Theft Auto since Vice City, and I'm like okay with that. Because like, just open world, I'm like, where do I go? So that's just very interesting.
You're the kind of guy who's like, I didn't play the game, I read the Wikipedia.
Absolutely. Or I try to find the perfect YouTube thing to watch where they don't go too fast nor too slow.
Good luck with that.
I know. Yeah, watch a 50-hour Fallout playthrough. Anyway.
And that's a speed run.
Yeah, but then you don't learn anything.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. If you have any comments or questions, put them below. Again, www.chrisklumpp.com to hear his Fallout-related role-playing fan-fiction stories where he's...
I'm not writing those anytime soon.
He's the maiden in distress and the Brotherhood of Steel. Oh, save me, brother!
You know what? I'm totally going to stop writing the Gun of Dawn saga, my current story. I'm going to start writing that instead.
It sounds good to me. All right, thank you guys for listening.